Welcome, motorheads, to Indimotard's Motorcycle Diaries, capturing motorcycle madness through all of these podcasts. I hope you enjoy it. Guys, in this episode of Indimotard's Motorcycle Diaries, we wanted to share some stories of back in the day, so to speak, of 2006, 7, around that time frame, with respect to Prashi, myself, and a whole bunch of guys who went to participate in the Raid Himalaya, which is probably some of you might know, and it's obviously changed its format. But let's talk about this. Gopal's here with me, and we'll try and share some stories from those mad days.
Hi Anand sir. Hi everyone. So let's start off this week's episode with how and what all set things in motion for you guys to do the raid.
Yeah, so obviously we traveled to the mountains in, with Prashi, of course, leading the pack, 2004, 5, etc. So somewhere along the way, I think some discussion saying, we were in Shimla, and I think we went to Raid Himalaya was famous at that time in one sense, because prior to that it was primarily like a car thing. So a lot of course, Suzuki or Maruti was involved in it. And so we walked into the office one day, and which was before the raid, and we sort of were just generally chatting about this thing, and suddenly it sort of occurred to us that, you know what, why not? Why don't we take part? So we came back from the mountains, I think 2006 or 5, and we kind of sort of put a plan together to go to the raid. And at that time, the following year, which is 2006, was considered the toughest Raid Himalaya. And the way the Raid Himalaya works, I'm sure you probably know, Gopal, but they have a adventure format, and then they have an extreme format. So the two-wheel extreme format is quite brutal. It happens in October. It's about 7 days and about 2,400, 500 odd kilometers. And that year happened to be an anniversary special where they wanted to make it tougher. And Vijay Parmar is the person who sort of orchestrates this whole thing and makes it brutal for you.
So who all joined you on the raid and how did that whole team come to ride together on the raid?
Yeah, so I think what happened was, because of this motorcycle small sort of crowd, we all ended up sort of, I think, coming back to Bangalore post one of the tours, and we said, we should take part in the raid, blah, blah, blah. So at that time, Bhaskar was not there, but Aditya, Dev Bhaktuni, a whole bunch of guys, Sanket Shanbag, Prashi, myself, Dheeraj, quite a few guys who suddenly decided that we'll go and do this thing, right? So now we had to build a motorcycle. And I think that's kind of where the story begins, in one sense, where we came back and we said, what bike are we going to ride? So Prashi, obviously being a Bullet fan, decided that he would modify a 500 with all kinds of suspension on it. So we got some imported suspension for the bike, and we started building that motorcycle, and he called it the Urge. So it had a very dirt bike oriented look. Bali is one of the mechanics that was obviously very supportive in doing this. And along the way, Prashi said, listen, I think we should obviously take part, for me also to take part. And that year I decided to also go on a Bullet.
Oh, nice.
So it was literally an unmodified Bullet, and Prashi had a modified Bullet. And we built this motorcycle in the first year, especially for him, with all of this stuff. And we carted this bike, both the bikes, of course. I was on pretty much a standard Enfield 500, and I think it still exists, the bike. And we decided that we'd show up in Shimla about almost 2.5, 3 weeks prior to this whole event. So, obviously we were new to this whole thing. We didn't know exactly the format. So there were a lot of things, checklists that you would typically do in terms of needing a GPS, route maps, road books, various things. And, we have never really been used to a rally of this format. And it was literally sort of jumping into fire to run, to take part in something like this without really having much experience of running multiple rallies and formats.
With this, what is the intention of going 3 weeks prior? Was it to do a proper recce And
Yeah, yeah. So I think we wanted to sort of just chill for a bit,
oh,
but the intent was also to go and do some recce, understand the route, and obviously sort of they give us the road books. We had never really been in that terrain, and I know we had kind of gathered that Vijay would make this really difficult. He likes to make it difficult. So imagine October, one high altitude passes up anything about 12,000, 14,000 feet. Uh, you've got literally snow, ice, black ice sort of conditions. You've got roads that are pretty much like brutal, meaning gravel, cut stones, rocks. There was so this whole thing of the government cutting roads into to provide access to villages. So you're literally using those roads and treating them as competitive stages.
uh, there's this I mean, I think the government organization called the Bro. Were they involved with the caving of the roads and putting salt on the snow and everything?
Yeah, so BRO is the Border Roads Organization,
Yeah.
but they are involved more in the defense where the access to defense is needed. Uh, Whereas we were starting from Shimla,
Oh,
right? So Shimla is the headquarters for the Reddy Himalayas offices. So obviously, Vijay does a lot of homework. He goes in his vehicles. He also rides really well. So he goes in his, I think, Fortuner at that time or Pajero, and he literally chalks out this whole thing, right? So imagine doing the homework for about 2,000 odd plus kilometers, knowing where you need to brake, you need to treat each. So it was divided into two parts, right? So one is a liaison stage and another is a competitive stage. So in one day, you could be riding, let's say 400, 500 odd kilometers. And out of that, maybe about 150 to 250 or 300 plus or less minus, it would be treated as competitive. And the other is liaison stages. Liaison stages are what called transport. Also, the other word is called transport stages.
okay.
So in transport stages, the idea is that you might be able to take a small break. It is a day only format, but it starts fairly early and obviously ends in such a way that you're not really caught in the darkness, right? So, which unlike the Baja, which we did, which is day and night.
Yeah.
The Dakar is also very much day format, and you try and finish by the end of the day before sunset. You're not really equipped for riding in the night with these kind of vehicles.
Which stages are you timed in? And
Yeah, so the competitive is where you are obviously timed a lot more precisely.
okay.
The liaison is basically to say, let's say, for example, I started my competitive stage at mile zero, 110 kilometers through pretty shitty roads, and in terms of obviously it's meant to be, is time to say when did I start, when did I finish. So you have a time book. So when you start the stage, you end the stage, and he marks the time saying you started at so and so. And there's a guy at the end of the competitive stage, and he says you reached what, say, let's say for example, an hour and 45 minutes later or whatever. From there on, you're flagged off into a competitive stage where allowed, for example, service, fueling. Uh, you can grab a bite to eat if you call it that. But that's also fairly tight because the next competitive stage may be about 50 kilometers away. So you're getting
Okay.
a break of, I'm going to say 50 kilometers. So you're riding, in one sense, public roads,
Okay.
which is why the vehicles needed to be registered and you follow certain speed limits. And at that point in time, there's no radio connection with headquarters, or there's really no modern communication that was available at that time. So you treat the transport or the liaison stage as a time to sort of take a breather, but there's not a lot of time. So literally,
Yeah.
when you finish, let's say you start at 5 in the morning, at 8 you're in the end of competitive one, CS1 as you call it. Then you start CS1, and you're supposed to be at competitive stage two by, for example, 9:30, 9:45. So now imagine having to make sure your chain's okay, clutch cable, this, that. So you may have problems along the way. You maybe had a fall, maybe you ran out of fuel. Of course, obviously, you
You
need
have
to tank
factor
up.
all that.
Yeah. So you factor all that to say, okay, I better make it,
Yeah.
and I can't just hang around and have a chai and a smoke and just chill out. Although we sort
Yeah.
of, some of us took that liberty,
Yeah.
and it starts getting tougher because obviously it's biting cold. The bike's behavior also in that era was all carbureted, right? So now you kind of might have to fiddle with the air screw, maybe with the jet plugs, air filter problems, which makes this challenging not just from your rider perspective, but the service crew has to now jump if you call it, to
Yeah.
make sure that they reach the other stage, because they don't have access to the competitive stage road. So they use the main roads, if you call it B roads, if you call it, to get to the next end of stage 1, stage 2, stage 3.
Right, right.
So one stage could be 400, 500 kilometers. Again, next day it repeats, right? So there is no rest day, there's no break day, etc. And by the time you get there, let's say for example, end of day 1, you got to, for example, for us, I think was Shimla to Manali, which is already on the road is 400. Now you add another, let's say 150, 200, so because of the competitive, you got 600 kilometers going in one day. You get there, you get the bike sorted out, service crew, this, that, and then 2 a.m., 3 a.m., they post the results of the previous day,
Wow.
of the day that you ran.
Ah.
So then you know who starts
First,
second,
yeah,
third. What's
how
your starting point? And again, the flag off is at 4:30 the second day, 4:30, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, right? So now you know you're going into Up Rohtang,
Yeah.
right, which is from Manali, and that's cold. It's slushy. It's wet. One side is kind of nice and green. The other side is nasty. And some part of that becomes competitive. Some part of that becomes a transport stage. So we were ending. I think our second day was from Manali to Kaza,
Wow.
which is a bloody hell of a
And
stretch.
it's only there's no roads. I mean, I've been there recently.
Yeah.
But I can imagine how bad it was. It's only rocks. There's no
it is.
road.
Yeah, because you're running. I think you come over Rohtang, come down to Gramfu, turn right at Gramfu, and then you're pretty much in a dirt fest.
Yeah.
There's water crossing, there's rocks, there's a whole riverbed for miles and miles, and then this whole dreaded Kunzum Pass, which was considered, and I think maybe still to some extent, where visibility changes so quickly that Kunzum was not open, I think, till about 2000. I'm going to say 2003, 4. Very few people ventured into Kaza and those places. So that was our sort of day 2, day 3 situation, right? And you go there, now you again repeat the cycle backwards. So day 3 says back from Kaza to Tandi or Kelong. So you're coming over the lake bed, your tires, your rims, your obviously your spokes, chain, everything is going through some absolute brutality in terms of what happens. So that was year 1.
I will want to get you back to that place where you are prepping your bikes, which is the famous or infamous Royal Enfields. That
Yeah.
You and Preshi are prepping.
Yeah.
So we'll get
So-
back to that.
Absolutely. So we prepared one Royal Enfield and for him and one for myself. Mine was, of course, pretty much stock. I blew that engine in the recce. So we carted it into a truck, brought it back. We tried to build that motorcycle in Chandigarh. It lasted, I think, the first year I didn't finish the course because I think I bombed out day 3 or day 4 because the engine failed because I was an Enfield. The following year, what happened was Red Rooster Racing had sort of started in India, and we proposed this thought of saying, can we borrow or use their WR 450s and their 250s? Now, Bhaskar, I'm sure maybe at least amongst our circle, we know him. He's a not fairly, he's a very, very highly talented, good both on the track as well as on the road. So we had like a super strong contingent this time, right? We had Bhaskar, Prashi, Aditya, myself, and I built a Charisma with suspension, front and back imported suspension, and we got that done here in Bali's place. That took like forever. It was just like there was a never-ending measurement and rake and trail and footrest and where is it going to sit and is it cramped. So it really had to last 8-10 days, right?
Yeah.
All the and the recce time. So you needed to be sort of robust on one hand. We knew that the Charisma engine was, I'm going to say, fairly reliable, but the rest of it was, if you call it, just layman's engineering. There was nothing.
Yeah.
It wasn't some scientific drawing and AutoCAD and cutting this. It was all like, okay, let's do this. Let's put this together. Let's put the front end. I think it's okay. Let's move this seat back and we built a tank, a petrol tank. So we built the rear subframe. We put the rear swing arm, monoshock, the rear sets or the footrest, and there was no time to test it right here. Only when I went there did I realize that it was so tightly sort of packed for my legs that I think by day 2 or 3, I had tremendous amount of cramp.
Okay.
Like it is cramping up on my calf muscles and my inner thigh muscles. But that year was a wicked ass year. Like it was just awesome, 2007. Um, you had asked me earlier, like kind of how that whole thing went about.
Yeah.
Bhaskar was on fire, Prashi was on fire, I was doing fairly well, Aditya was doing fairly well. So if you look at the way we got started, and it was similar route to the 2006
Right.
run, and the guys up there suddenly were all like the people who were usually winning pretty much at all times had never seen an imported set of bikes run clean.
Mm-hmm.
To them, a lot of them had bought CRF 450s and this and that, but none of those bikes, they didn't have, not to put them down, but I don't think they had the knowledge to understand carburation and fueling when you go up to higher altitudes.
I'm guessing Rashi's scale with the carburetor would have come in really
Oh,
handy.
it was just wicked because we were literally changing jets at we would get second stage. I think one liaison stage. We were I think climbing up Grotang, having a chai, pull the bowl out, swapped a new jet in because we knew we were going to higher altitudes.
Yeah.
So stuff like that, right? So it was pretty insane, and Bhaskar was flying. I think we finished that year pretty much with, I think out of the 22 or 24 stages, I think 22 belonged to Prashi and Baski. Fastest, like if you just measure competitive stage, fastest time. And the overall winners turned out to be, Bhaskar, of course, I'll tell you about the bad crash that he had, which I picked him up and rode on. Prashi finished second, I finished fourth. So Aditya finished, I think, sixth. So we had like a proper nice set of runs, and that year was really, really, really tough. 7. We come out of, we end up in Kaza on day 2, 2007. Bhaskar is running like a freaking gun and like a bullet actually, and he's on it. Prashi's on his tail. We come out of Kaza, transport stage, we come to Losar, the competitive stage starts. I can sort of see the road twisty and turny, and it's all gravelly. So there's, I think Ashish Modgil maybe was in front, or maybe Bhaskar was staged off first. He takes off, Prashi takes off, Modgil takes off, I take off with 1 minute intervals. We're catching each other. I come around a bend and I see this bike on the side of literally on the side of the ditch.
Okay.
Like luckily it was a then gentle slope. There's a bike and Bhaskar's down there.
Okay.
Prashi's kind of stopped. I said, Prashi, let's go, you go. I got this. Because I know he was running in front. So I pick up the bike, the exhaust fallen off. Bhaskar is shaken up. He's got broken ribs or pain in the ribs. He's quite shaken up. I said, Baski, let's go. Right? I said, can you ride? And so Baski said, yeah, dude, I think I can manage. But he said, I can't navigate. I said, nothing, don't worry. Just stick behind me. Whatever it is, we're going to, I think we had to get to Baralachla.
So what about the exhaust which is broken?
We had to leave it there, literally. So we ran that with the 3/4 pipe.
Okay.
It was loud as hell.
Yeah.
So I could obviously
Yeah.
hear him behind me. So it was like Bhaskar was following me, or rather I was leading him just because he was in the state. And we were just like sort of almost getting back into the zone.
I just wanted to, sorry to interrupt, but I want to know, what are you guys riding this time?
Yeah. So I'm riding the Charisma. Bhaskar's on the WR450.
Okay.
Prashi's on, Prashi's on the WR250
Okay.
with Red Rooster livery.
Okay.
So we're on the gas, right? And it's minus, I don't know. Of course, it's daytime, but it's still like freaking cold. All the gravel areas, luckily the snow hasn't, even though it melts into ice, it crumbles right away.
Right.
So we come down Losar, Kunzum, visibility is like, you can sort of see maybe about 10, 15, 20 feet. And we do make that run in Kunzum. I mean, generally when you go over these passes, you have a Mata, which is the Devi or whatever it's called, the goddess. And ideally, or what they always say, even the drivers, all of the taxi guys believe that you do make one chakkar, one circle around this before you continue. So this is, imagine, in the competitive stage, we still go around this thing, because I said, Bhaskar, we have to do this. He was like, he put his hands out, is indicating like, come on. I said, listen, we have to do this one run because it's important. I mean, I'm just shouting this out. It's not like I'm stopping and discussing this.
Right.
So we do this one run around the Kunzum Mata, and then we head down to, down Kunzum Pass, and then we're on booking it. We get to Darcha, we get to Batal, we get to Gramfu, and it's continuing. Tandi, Kelong, Zing Bar. We're up to basically just south of the base of the Paralacha Mountains. It's an army camp, and it was brutal. Like,
How long was this stage for this
shit.
day?
Oof, I think I'm scared to even think about it, because we started in Kaza,
Right.
and we were at this base camp below Baralachla, and I think that's a good, easily 6 to 8 hour run.
Yeah, I'm
Like-
sure that's like some 200 kilometers.
Yeah, 200 and
It'll
something.
take-
Yeah, it's about, I think, 100 and something, 110 to about Gramfu, and another 100 and something to Pang. This Baralachla base. So we get there, and obviously all the cars have shown up. You see, mostly it's all gypsies, very few cars. I think there was a Octavia or something like that was used, which broke down, I think, in the second day, or the suspension gave up. So we're all there, and it's just barracks, army barracks. Biting cold means if you took a piss, it would freeze. That bad. I think I have a photo. I think we camped in the night. I took Bhaskar and Prashi. Prashi had a fall meanwhile. He had a broken finger. Bhaskar had broken ribs, shoulder. Was sort of hurting. So I go to the medical camp. Obviously, it's an army thing. And, the doctor looks at it and says, yeah, broken finger. We tape this up. Ribs, nothing you can do. Sorry, guys. Take some painkillers and get going. Oh, that's it. There was nothing. Then I take the bike, Baski's bike, without the exhaust. Army has a mechanic shop
Okay.
servicing their gypsies and trucks and all that. I find a bent piece of a header
Okay.
from a gypsy or a truck,
Ah.
and I weld it to the 3/4 pipe to just help reduce the noise and the back pressure.
Yeah.
So I've got an open pipe on the WR. Prashi's fingers broken. He's obviously got some little bit of pain in the shoulder, etc. But his wasn't a broken rib, but Bhaskar's was. He was in bad shape. And so we camp out. I mean, obviously they gave us these barracks with one, like a bed and a sleeping bag.
Mhm.
I don't think any of us got out of our gear. We
Oh.
pretty much slept, I think, maybe even my boots. I didn't even get out of my boots. Now, morning, you have to take a piss and probably need to take a dump too.
Yeah.
Right? What are you going to do with this? And Indian toilets,
Yeah.
there's nothing you can do to get through the day. So we got up at, I think, 4:30. There was a cup of hot chai. You're eating bars, and at that time, not even energy bars, because it's all like nuts and whatever we carried, 5-star chocolates and Snickers. I don't think was available even at that time.
Yeah.
And it's like literally blue, sort of short of feeling blue in your hands, nose, any exposed area. We go out. Obviously, there's still people awake and doing stuff to their bikes and cars, and obviously, it's not like a dead situation.
Yeah.
And there's pretty much snow and ice, and it's just white. It's white on all the motorcycles. It's all white on all the trucks.
So it snowed through the night.
Exactly.
Man.
Now we have to start the bikes.
Yeah.
So Prashi had this brilliant idea. He said, Anand, let's not start these bikes right now.
Okay.
So we lit some pieces of paper, newspaper, which we had, or rather we found, got some basic twigs from somewhere. I don't even know how we managed that. I honestly can't tell. And we lit fires under the engine blocks to just let the oil sort of warm up a bit before starting the bike.
Yeah.
So I think I remember Sachin had his modified Enfield, Prashi, mine. I think the Charisma was easier to start because obviously it's a 200 and something odd cc, but the 500s where, it's not like you can kick it and start it and the oil is obviously thicker.
True, true.
So we lit these little bonfires and lit it under the bikes to, I mean, this was all obviously being done by the truck guys too. You do see them because they're running diesel engines, thicker oil, so they pretty much are standard fare for them to do this. So we do all this, and then we realize that we forgot to fill fuel in Prashi's bike. Now, the competitive stage starts from the base camp of just below Baralachla. So what we do is, Prashi goes out, I think, third or fourth. We tell this guy in front of, now we're already in what's called Park Fermi. Park Fermi means the bikes are parked and you cannot go in and do anything. That's it. It's like your lockdown period, cool down period, whatever the word is, right? So the bikes are parked there and we realize that, oh, wait, we've forgotten to put fuel in Prashi's bike in this confusion of everything.
But the other bikes that you guys are riding, those had fuel. Who was in charge of?
Yeah, so Jitinder was the mech with the service crew, and I think somehow it got sort of, I don't know, maybe we missed out, or because there was quite a few bikes he was servicing, which is like almost some 5-6 of us. So what we do is Vikram, this guy who was riding, we give him a can of petrol, and in the competitive stage you cannot provide service.
Okay.
You can see the road, okay? It's about maybe about 200, 300, 400 meters before the mountains start. It's a flat section. The competitive stage starts here. There's a flag, there's cones, there's officials. Now, Park Fermi is already done. So what we do, we give Vikram a small, I think it was a 2 liter or 3 liter can, 5 liter can of fuel, and tell him, you take off, go about 100 meters and leave the can on the side of the competitive stage road.
Okay.
So Prashi goes, parks the bike when he gets flagged off, opens his tank, opens this, dumps the petrol can into his thing, leaves the can there and takes off. Now Bhaskar's already flagged off.
Okay.
Now before this, it's been snowing. There's black ice on Baralachla and that's treacherous as hell. Baralachla is also quite like, it snows, it gets filled up, there's heavy snowfall. And the organizers decide that since Bhaskar finished first ahead of the cars, this was the first time in the history of this thing that the bikes finished, two or three bikes finished ahead of cars' timings. And at that time, cars were just flying. I mean, Suresh Rana, just mad. They decide that instead of the cars going first to break the ice, we go by order. And that the bikes are going out first.
Oh, shit.
I was like, shit, this is not a good idea.
Yeah. So if the cars go, I think they'll pave the roads a little bit so that the bikes ride better.
At the weight of the car, you'll crush some bit of the ice, right? So I don't think any protest or any kind of noises really helped in solving this issue. So Bhaskar goes out, and I think I sort of felt that there was something anyway kind of odd about the whole. I mean, in the sense that it wasn't a good feeling to go out in that weather. Right?
Did you have to tell Bhaskar to slow down because to avoid this?
Yeah, I mean, it was more like each man for himself. Okay. One, it's biting cold.
Yeah.
Second, there's only so much you can predict ahead of time because you've not really ridden in those conditions before.
Yeah.
So Bhaskar takes off. Vikram and Prashi take off. We swap places, I think, and Prashi gets the fuel. We start climbing up Baralachla. I'm coming around the bend, and there's Bhaskar on the side of the road. Again. And this was bad. And this was like sort of semi-tarmac, black ice, and he kind of almost, I think he went into a side wall. And I pulled over. I said, Bhaskar, he said, dude, I can't ride. It's paining a lot. So I said, listen, just hang here. Enough, okay, you're done. So I continue, and I'm looking for these marshals that are sort of, they're not exactly placed everywhere. They're placed in different parts of, there's no radio access, there's no Stella unit that tells you where you are, GPSs, control towers, nothing. So we go, and I'm still, it's a competitive stage.
Right.
So I'm belting, Prashi's gone. I find two guys with a car and says, rate the Himalaya official. I pull over and say, Bhaskar's down, you guys better get medical help because he's bad. Okay, and all that. And of course, they, I'm sure I don't know what happened after that. They promptly left, or rather, I promptly left. And they pick up Bhaskar because now I can't go backwards in time.
Right.
So I go continue past all this. We go to Sarchu, and that's our camp for the night.
Okay.
Sarchu is 14,000 feet. It's like the vomit capital of the world, kind of a thing, because people get sick. So as I'm talking to you, Gopal, it feels like I'm reliving each day and sort of recalling, if I call challenges and the fun and the adventure of it. So we leave Sarchu on day 3, I think, day 3. And there's a famous bridge. It's flat, beautiful mountains. It's obviously cold. It's bloody. The wind is flapping the shit off the tent walls. No, obviously we getting chai, biscuits, whatever, and we leave again early morning. Flag off. Luckily from Sarchu, it felt like there was a little bit of sun because I think we flagged off a little later because the stretch was from Sarchu to Leh. Okay. It's a long stretch, but still doable. More Plains, Tanglangla.
What was the scene at Sarchu? Where did you guys stay? Was it again an
Tent.
army camp?
Not even an army camp. Just basically this people who pitch temporary tents.
Okay.
So you got a bed. I think there's a loo, sort of a makeshift loo. There's a food tent, and you park all the bikes, and you sort of sleep for the night with this thing. And I think from the previous experience we started carrying these powder packets of heat.
Uh-huh.
So you can them up, you can put them in your thing, and obviously your feet and your hands. Yeah. But it's still very, very uncomfortable. You're feeling nauseous.
Yeah.
You've not had enough ORS, if you call it all that. So Sarchu is, we flag off from Sarchu. So obviously everybody's in good spirits. Bhaskar, of course, unable to ride. Prashim, myself, Aditya, a bunch of us, and we're like, okay, let's go. There's Karanbir, who now runs Hotel Dezor in Gaza. So a lot of known characters. Matharu, Sandeep Singh Matharu, lots of guys who became friends over the time, So we leave Sarchu, flag off starts, and at the bridge, there's a little bit of an uphill, a little bit of tarmac, and it's black ice. Obviously, we can't, again, you don't know where you are, right? In terms of, like, if you're taken a different path, because the story only relates to the fact that it's hilarious because knowing the situation, there's a couple of TV crews, I think Star Sports or something like that, on both ends and photographers wanting to capture this fall of multiple people because it's happened before.
Okay.
So everybody comes around, and I think Prashi goes, and he's almost up that thing, and he has a toss.
Okay.
Like literally, like falls flat on his thing. Then the next guy. Then the next guy. Everybody's falling at this spot. So I come around and I manage to sort of somehow sneak past this part, and I think I'm home stretch. Literally about another 10 feet later, I also fall. So we pick this up, and I think there's obviously people are like, while cheering, they're also having a good laugh and capturing this on TV. So Sarchu, we hit up tough stretch because it goes over to Pang to More Plains. More Plains didn't have any roads at that time. Today it does. Then over Tanglangla again no roads. Today it's like literally like a racetrack.
Yeah.
And then you hit Rumse, and then Upsi, and then Leh. And we are like, yeah, feeling so good. We had a superb ride. A lot of it was competitive until maybe Rumse or something, and beyond that it was a liaison stage. So from Leh, it continues to Kargil.
On the same
rally, yeah.
On the same day?
No. So we overnight at Leh.
Okay.
Next day we head to Kargil. Over a couple of the passes, but those are nice, good stretches. Little did we realize that the way Vijay has planned this is that, big deal, we get to Kargil. I mean, come on, it's like, not a... The next day, from Kargil back, was a competitive stage, and we flag off at 3:30 in the morning from the grounds in Kargil. We get to the Kargil hotel, by the way, the previous day, from Leh, and we checked into this hotel or whatever, it's a basic thing. The car guys usually get a lot of preference. I mean, nothing wrong. But anyway, so we check into this hotel, and I'm not kidding you. I think, or rather we discussed and said there must have been definitely bullet holes and blood stains on the walls. In a couple of the rooms. Yeah. And then the food was bad because I think we wanted to have, we didn't want to have non-vegetarian. We walked down to Kargil town, which is obviously the hotel
It's a
is
very
there.
small town.
Very
Yeah.
small. There's not a single place with vegetarian food.
Yeah.
So this one guy, the store owner, he's about to close up. He's basically like a kirana shop kind of guy. So we tell him, and there was a dhaba, I think maybe two or three stores before this. He's also about to close down. So when we walk in there, he says, "Ab, aata nahi hai, ye nahi hai, this that."
All right.
So we said, "Hold on."
Yeah.
So we go to the store. We convince this guy to give us atta, buy some tomatoes, onions, potatoes, whatever, and we go to this other dhaba guy, and he makes us pretty much some kind of sabzi, dal, whatever, and this roti from the atta. And obviously, we were like, I think the most probably happiest, liberated, knowing that we had like good food in our, system. Because again, we knew the next day morning was going to be tough. So at 3:30, Dras is considered the second coldest
Yes.
thing on the planet or something like
Yes.
that, right?
Yes, sir.
So Kargil is, I mean, not really too far off. 3:34, we assemble at Park Ferme. We get flagged off. It's pitch dark and absolutely white everywhere. There's like snow pretty much any corner you turn, on the trees, on the sides, and this thing. Everything is just white. So we leave Kargil. And I think my charisma we didn't have all these extra fancy lights. Nothing was available in India. So we make our way up. I think it's Futula Pass, I think so. And then we go up. Now, we're going up this thing. It's really, 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 really cold. I think we stopped because it's one part of it was a transport stage. We stop on the side and Prashi says, I need to take a pee. I'm with him. So we stop. Prashi goes out, gets down from his bike. I'm still on the bike. And as he's peeing, he's jumping up and down. And he's saying, Anna, I just want to go home, Anna. I just want to go home. Oh. He's like, literally, like, done.
Yeah.
I was like, shit. Anyway, so we continue. And we're almost up the pass. It's black ice. And in front of us is 2 or 3 other bikes. Literally, like somebody on a guinea pig on a treadmill. The bike, both his feet are on the pegs.
Okay.
Throttle's open. The rear wheel's spinning, but the bike's stationary. The bike's literally in the same spot. So it's sort of an incline as you climb up the pass.
Okay.
So it looks like something out of a cartoon movie where the wheel is just spinning for more than, it's not like he's there all the time, but until he loses traction and then just slides down and falls.
Okay.
Right? Then I go up, same thing happens, I fall. Freshie goes up, Freshie falls. I think that one section, when we go up and over, I think we must have fallen, I don't know, easily 5, 7, 8 times. Easily. Like just, you go up, you think you got a little bit of traction, boom, gone. Pick it up. Then somewhere along this way, and this is not ending because it's like 5:30 in the morning and it's cold, the sun's not coming up to do any help. Biting cold. Literally, if you drop the bike on the road, you could just take 2 fingers and like, if you just move the bike, it would just come along with you. Like if you kicked it, it would just slide.
So much of snow.
Snow of black ice.
Yeah.
It was nasty. Only, I think after about 5-10 minutes did we figure out that if you use the shoulder where it was all mud, slushy a bit.
You get better traction.
So,
Who figured that out, sir?
I don't know. I think one of us was following each other and I think I jumped onto it or he jumped onto something and I said, you just let's just ride, the slushy section, even though it looks not so good, but actually it's got more traction than the road. And we were cutting time because the cutoff was, I think, 12 o'clock or something like that, 11 o'clock or something like that in Leh. And we've already lost time with all this treadmill stuff and, falling and literally Brew is beyond words in terms of everything.
Yeah.
We come down one of the passes and the sun's starting to come up, so you're feeling good. And then from there to Leh we stopped, I think, one chai because we just needed something hot in the body. And I think we probably booked it from there. Literally, I think we made it, if the cutoff was 11, I think we made it at 10:53 or 10:57 or some weird, like literally to the finish line.
Yeah.
But that's how it ended. Then we had, of course, we were all obviously super thrilled. Everybody finished because from Kargil, one of the stages which I sort of recall now was to go to Padum and back.
Oh, okay.
That was Zanskar, right? And that was really, really, really tough. Karan had a fall before that. Um, then they had uh, Sandeep, I mean Mataru's bike. He was pushing it. I think he was coming second, or first, second. Yeah. At some point, I saw him on the side of the road, on the competitive stage. There's the rim, the tire, and the hub. There's no spokes. Spokes were all like tattered and gone. Like there was maybe it was hanging on to two, three spokes.
Was it because he was riding so hard, or?
Yeah, I think that at some point the spokes would have started to give up,
Okay.
and you really didn't have time to clean it up,
Yeah.
or rather service crew.
Yeah.
So that was the extra 2 days that so it all together made, I think, 7 days total.
Wow.
And I think there's a picture of us at the top of Padum.
Mm-hmm.
We had I think, a gentleman from Mumbai, older gentleman, but he was out of breath. Like he was, I mean, I'm not going to say, yeah, I think he sort of collapsed. And there's nobody there, right? It's like, it's a dead end of a stage. You go there, stop, and then you have to head back.
Oh, you're
So
going
you're
to
not,
back.
yeah, you're not staying there.
Oh, okay.
Like you've got to go back to Kargil. So, and you're coming back, except that the return is treated as transport.
Yeah.
So you're not. So I think there's Rangdum, which is the monastery, on the way, and some beautiful pictures from there. Some photographer was brave enough to brave the weather and the elements. We got back to Kargil, and then that was the last stage that I described. Coming back to Leh. Then there was obviously a ceremony. So Bhaskar, of course, had, I think, meanwhile wound up, and he had flown out. So all of us, I think, there's a nice. It was really a nice feeling of literally some 6, 7 of us. Jitinder, the service guy, along with his crew, who really, I think, all said and done, not easy. Not easy to look after 5, 6 people's motorcycles, food, petrol, so many things that you never really think of, which you might need, but you end up needing, and it sort of brought all of us together because at somewhere down this road, that friendship brought us in another episode. We can talk about going to the Baja with literally the same characters.
Okay.
Right?
Sure,
So
sure.
it sort of bonds you for life, so to speak.
So there was this story that Prashi mentioned about when we were doing the numerous rides to and forth to Breeze House. Was in one section there was a guy who used to take a shortcut and he used to gain time.
Yeah, exactly.
And
That was
Prashi,
Ashish.
after 2 times or something, Prashi came to realize that how is this guy faster than us?
Yeah.
Can you please tell us more?
So Ashish Morgil basically was obviously quite quick. He rides well, but he was also from that part of the world, right? He knew Himachal terrain, this, that. So if you look at a lot of the passes, it's continuous hairpin bends and switchbacks, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Now, you'll see certain roads that are connecting, for example, I mean, we have done this much later, where you take shortcuts that connect from, let's say, one part of the Ghat section, the switchbacks, down to another. So you've saved yourself a good, easily 3 to 5, 6 minutes, depending on where the shortcut is.
Okay.
Right, if you call it a shortcut. Legally, you're not supposed to because it's a competitive stage.
Correct.
But nobody's really how can you monitor so much of terrain continuously, right? I mean, visually, today you can look at a GPS and say whether you took a shortcut. If you had some kind of a device that allows you to see where you are,
Correct.
a control tower to see where you are, you can probably see. But, so which is exactly what happened, right? Which is, we ended up, Bhaskar, Prashi, myself, we were all running fast. But this guy was still running first.
Yeah, yeah.
So, and then obviously we realized that you do see those, if you call it goat paths, goat herd paths, or maybe the army takes it, or maybe some regular driver says, listen, I think this is safe enough for me to not go another half a kilometer to make a U-turn and come. I'll take these roads. Usually what they do is they either take it uphill or downhill. One of the two is what works for them. Because some are very steep.
Right.
to go uphill because the truck won't climb. But going downhill, you can sort of inch your way down. Only later did we realize that, oh, I mean, ethically you should not have taken it, but that's an option for you. So, and that's kind of what happened, I think, before Casa, because it's got some very nice shortcuts. I mean, if you go on a tour or an adventure, you'll probably enjoy all this because you're like, hey, you know what? I think we can just go up, come down, go up, come down. You don't have to stick to the road, so to speak.
Correct.
Correct.
Nice. Nice.
So that's the story of our 2 years of Raid the Himalaya, and as much as it was brutal, it was also a mental challenge personally. So it wasn't about, oh, we want to finish first. Yes, we were having fun more than wanting to finish or go with the aim of finishing first or second or whatever. I mean, it was nice that we did, but it was also because it was a lot of it was enthusiasm, goodwill, good karma, helping each other, even other competitors. During the stages where people had K&N filters at that time or needed something in.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't help each other out in these races.
True.
It's fairly competitive. People get a little
Yeah, the
nasty.
nature of competition, right?
Little get nasty with each other.
Yeah.
So all of that, I think, I think I'm not going to say today, but for quite a few years after we went and came, there is quite a bit of not just, I think, yeah, I would say respect and good karma to say, those guys came, it was so much fun. The hotel we stayed in Shimla when we were doing the recce's, we booked the whole place because it was just us. It was a small place. And, the parking lot was our bikes, we were working on it, doing some nonsense, just generally sort of having a really whale of a time with motorcycles. And so all in all, I just, I feel like it's a beautiful experience. And now I think the raid has changed considerably in terms of how it's run, because obviously there have been deaths. I think, I don't know today, but it was considered in the top 10 toughest rallies in the world at some point when it was in that extreme format.
Right.
So that's kind of where we are. So thank you so much, Gopal.
Right, sir. Thank you. Before we wrap this week's episode, I just want to tell you guys about this small pavilion that we've created at the Grease House for displaying these few photographs of the Raid the Himalaya of Anand sir and Prashi sir running. This week's episode was prompted by these photographs. So whenever you guys are free and are in this part of town, you're more than welcome to come in and check it out. Cheers.
Thanks for listening to Indimotard's Motorcycle Diaries. We plan to do this every fortnight. You can hear us on SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. And obviously, I'd like to sort of close with this is if you like what we do share it with your friends and spread the word. If you don't like what we do, tell us and see how we can improve. So happy listening.
Indimotard.